Welcome back, casual gardeners. If you're noticing that this video is posting a little bit late to YouTube, first of all, thank you for being a regular enough watcher to notice that. I actually did have content to post on time, but as I was editing it, I noticed that it was garbage. It was hot, steaming, boring, information deficient garbage. So here we are in the garden. So what the video was going to be about was planting my tender crops, tomatoes, basil, peppers, and then growing them on inside for transplanting out later on when the weather warms up a little bit, which, you know, could be interesting. What we're going to do instead, we're changing gears, we're rolling with the punches, we're making up for the fact that I was a total putz in the last time I tried to make a video. What we're doing is I'm going to show you how I like to prepare my beds for planting, and we're going to plant some beds because not only is it time for me to start my tender plants indoors, but it's also time for me to start my frost hardy plants and my semi-hardy plants outdoors. This is a very exciting and busy time of the year that's going to be followed by lots of weeding and watering and not a lot else for a few weeks. So the way I like to make my beds is I just like to ensure that there is a relatively fine, flat seed bed to plant into. I don't have to do very much. This one that I'm sitting on has been made. The one behind me actually didn't need to get made. First, I need to pull back my irrigation system, and all of these are on a single line, so it rotates around the joint very easily. So I can just pull that back. It's really nice. Then once I've got that pulled back and out of the way, in the best case scenario, all I have to do is give it a quick rake and pull off the larger, more obnoxious stuff that's going to get in my way when I plant. Once I'm done with that, it's ready to go, and I go ahead and put my drip tape back where it was before. Now, I did have to put a little bit more work into this bed that I'm sitting on because it's where I had my potatoes planted last year, and I tore it up. It was a big clay cloddy pile because we have clay soil here. But I had to tear this up to get my paltry harvest of potatoes out because I planted too late in the season. So this required, I raked it, and then I put some fine organic material on top, and I raked it again because I want to be able to plant into it. But the bed that I showed you, that was where I grew tomatoes mostly last year. I don't disrupt the soil very much when I pull my tomatoes out because I try to leave as much of the root system in there as I can. As long as your tomatoes are not sick, they're contributing useful organic material to the soil. I like to cut them off or tear them off or break them off at the soil level and then just work around the roots because those will decompose. They're thoroughly dead. Tomatoes are a tropical plant, and they're going to provide carbon and nutrients and soil structure for whatever I plant there later. So I'd like to direct your attention to this bed right behind me. That's what we're going to do first. You can see I've got some garlic growing there. But that's not all that I'm going to be growing in that bed, and some of it we can plant right now. Also, the bed behind it is what we're going to be working on today. Now, since this is the most exciting bed that we're going to be tackling today, and by exciting I just mean we're doing the most stuff to it. I mean, this is gardening, it's not a roller coaster. But since we're doing the most stuff to this bed, we're going to start here. My plan is to move my little stick trellis from last season when I tried to grow my peas too late. We're going to move that over to here, and peas will grow here. And that's because it's going to start out with lots of sun and then get a little bit shady as we move into the summer, and that will probably help my peas deal with the heat that's coming. In this section of the bed, I am going to be growing beets. It's dedicated almost entirely to beets. Can't beat it. And then over here, I'm going to be leaving space for melons. I'm going to grow some melons, and they're going to spill out of the bed. I'm going to direct them in this direction where I have a lot of open space for the melons to just go crazy. If you grow melons, it's a great idea to plan for craziness. So you're either going to commit way more bed space than you want to melons, no thank you. Or if you're like me, you're going to give them some of your pathway. So that is my plan for this bed. Now that I've placed my trellis, it is time to plant some peas. So I've got two kinds of peas that I'm going to be planting. We've got the Sugar Daddy peas and the Mammoth Melting Sugar peas. These are both from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds or rareseeds.com. Moving forward, I am going to be trying to get more of my seeds from M.I. Gardner and Botanical Interests because I want to support my fellow YouTube content creators. And so you're going to see less of this and more of that. But for now, these are the seeds I've got. It's a decision that I made before, after I ordered my seeds. These ones I used last fall, but they should still be good. And I'm going to do a double row of each on each side of my trellis here because I'd like to compare them. So we'll do the Sugar Daddies closest to the edge. With peas, you can space pretty close. Yeah, let's plant them all. So you might have noticed I put in like 4 rows each instead of 2. Come at me. It's my garden. Now it's time for me to plant some beets. I haven't watered in the peas yet because I'm just going to water in the whole bed. And it would be silly to water it in sections. The peas will keep if the soil's a little bit dry. Beets and cats and beets and cats and beets and cats and beets and cats. There's way too many choices I get to make. So I've got these Detroit dark red beets from Botanical Interests. I've got these Bull's Blood beets from Baker Creek. Got some golden beets from Baker Creek. Got more Detroit dark red from Baker Creek. These are already, oh, they're not open either. Wow. This is why you should keep track of ordering what seeds you're ordering, unlike me. And then I got these Chioggia beets. These are cool. They're a little bit less red, but they're still red. Now I noticed with the beets that you do get a little bit of the color of the beets coming through in the leaves. Like the redder beets are going to have redder stems and redder veins in the leaves. And the golden beets actually have kind of a gold colored stem. It's really pretty. Kind of like Swiss chard, but no, you can eat the leaves too. A lot like Swiss chard. So anyway, let's lay out where I want to put my beets before we get planting. Spacing on beets is 4 to 6 inches, so I can go pretty close. These are spaced a little wide. Maybe I'll get bigger beets. I'm going to do a variety per Chioggia, golden beets, and let's do Bull's Blood in the middle. We'll do Detroit dark red on the outsides. Now as I plant these, I am going to want to keep in mind that each of these beet seeds is a compound seed. So I might need to do a little thinning, and I definitely only need to do 1 seed per spot. Now beets are a really good crop to grow multiple plantings of, so it doesn't bother me so much that I have a lot of extra seeds. I have left these unsmoothed over because I am going to use this space for something other than melons until it's time to plant melons, because this is the spring season and melons can't even go out until things have warmed up a bit. I'm thinking I can squeeze a little spinach in here. The spinach should be finishing up around the time I need to plant melons. This has spacing of 6 to 8 inches. How many rows of spinach can I get in here? Really? 6 to 8? Oh, it's called Monstre de Viroflay. So I'm wondering, it's called Monster because it's big. Now planting beets and spinach together like this is either a really good idea or a really bad idea, depending on my situation. Because there are leaf miners that specialize in eating spinach and beets. They like them both. So by putting them together, I could, from one perspective, be creating an all-you-can-eat buffet or leaf miners. But I could also, if I had a problem with leaf miners, be creating a situation where I am better able to put everything under cover without using multiple roll covers. So this is either very smart or very stupid, depending on your perspective. So are you an optimist or a pessimist? That will be what helps you decide whether I'm smart or stupid to do this. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You want to water very thoroughly when you water. So I'm going to go through the first time and put a nice layer of wet down. And then I'm going to come back and go over it again so that I'm watering deep. It's too early in the season for me to have irrigation water or even to turn on my sprinklers. So I will be watering all of my beds by hand for the first month or two. We're almost done for today. There will be follow-up videos because I do have several other beds to make, but I would kind of like to break this up so it's not too tedious. So expect kind of a flood of videos as we move into the spring. All I need to do for this bed is I'm going to put in a row of red Welsh onions from Grand Prismatic Seed. These are a bunching onion. They're a red bunching onion, and I'm really excited to try them. So they're going to be kind of a perennial plant, like a scallion. I'm going to give them a try. But so the overall plan for this bed is, of course, garlic. Garlic is non-negotiable through June. And then in this area here, I'm going to have a couple of pepper plants. And then this far end here is going to be squash, which just like in the other bed, they're going to spill out into this walkway and have access to all this space. Because just like melons, you want to give your squash room to run. So I'm going to plant a single row of red Welsh onions, just kind of in between where the peppers are going to go and where the squash is going to go, just to kind of squeeze it in there, because I didn't plan for these. These were an impulse buy, and we need to make the impulse buys work, man, otherwise it stops being fun. These are bunching onions, so they do not mind being a little bit crowded. Let's make a better, straighter row than that. Are straight rows important? No, they're just aesthetic. Onions you can sow pretty shallowly. I want to grow a bunch of these bunching onions. I'm just going to need to consistently keep them watered. Like I'm going to come out and water them every day until the seeds have germinated. After that, I need to back off because you don't want to drown your plants. Well, that's these two beds planted. Just in case you were curious about, what I intended to make the video about instead, I did plant several varieties of tomatoes. I planted a bunch of peppers. I planted some passion flower seeds. I've got some marigold seeds on my heat mat. I've got a bunch of basil. What else? I did, I started some goji berry seeds. I figure those should do well on heat. We'll find out. All of these things are going to have from seed to harvest instruction videos of their own coming out next winter. So I'm going to be collecting the footage and then editing it together during those winter months when we can't do a lot of gardening. So look forward to that. I think spring planting is probably some of the funnest things we do in the garden, because you don't have the big space limitations like you do when you're trying to start seeds indoors. You can just go for it. You have all that open space and you can just fill it with what pleases you. Thank you for joining me here in my garden today. Hope you have a wonderful time in your own garden.